All right, so it's stage 4 right now. The regular power cuts are a burden that we all bear. But in a big city like Johannesburg with aging infrastructure, the problems are exacerbated by these constant cuts. Systems get weakened and break, causing longer outages. Thieves use the opportunity to steal cables and vandalize substations. Recently, City Power warned on this program that they were actually running out of spare parts. But there are other challenges they're facing. Just last week, they ended the employment of over 100 contracted teams and appointed new contractors. Well, I'm joined now by the spokesperson for City Power, Isaac Mangena. Isaac, thanks so much for joining us. Talk to me about the outages. We know that some areas had 3-4 days without power. How's it going today? How's Monday been?
Thanks, Ali, for having us, and good evening to the viewers at home. We're still obviously recovering from the outages that we had. We're still having a huge backlog of outage calls from customers. This morning we woke up at around 3,500 outage calls from customers across the city of Johannesburg, and this is a little bit less than what had actually over the weekend. Over the weekend, we're hovering around 4,500, and we basically pumped in more resources to ensure that we deal with most of those prolonged outages in areas such as Rambek, Hest Hill, Lenasia, and so forth. So I think we really did well this past weekend to ensure that we basically moved the needle, that we basically reduced some of the backlogs that we were basically going through. And Sally, this is purely because of the impact of higher stages of load shedding that we have constantly being suffering from, but also the highest, the high demand of electricity during this time of the season. As winter, as you know, we have a lot of people that are actually using electricity, and as such, we find ourselves buckling under. But we managed to basically deal with most of those issues.
And do you have, last time you and I spoke, you were running out of spare parts and you were hoping to get more. Has that issue been resolved?
Yes, in terms of the spare parts, we're still obviously not keeping up with the huge demand due to the number of breakdowns that we have as City Power. But we do obviously, as part of our winter plans, because we know that like Christmas, winter will always be here, and as such, we know that our resources are often stretched to the limit during this period. But it doesn't help that with the sustained higher stages of load shedding, which are obviously we're having this winter for the first time with sustained higher stages of load shedding. Last year it was a little bit better, we had breaks here and there, but this year it has really been very difficult for us, and it found our infrastructure, the wear and tear in our infrastructure basically increasing on a daily basis because of those. So we are
it's not only the wear and tear. I mean, it seems that you're dealing with vandalism, you're dealing with theft, but also suggestions that some of the very people who you have contracted may be involved in sabotage. And last week there was a contractor arrested, suspicion of sabotaging a substation in Roodepoort. I believe he's due in court on Thursday. Is this an isolated incident, or are you concerned that a number of other contractors may be involved in actually either sabotaging the system or doing things like making sure they call out only to areas that are already out of power in load shedding, so they can log the call, make the money, and then move on, because of course they can't fix during load shedding? Are these issues part of the reason why you've ended the contract period with one lot of contractors and employed some new ones?
Sally, I think the last time I came to your show, I did concede that we suspect that we could be having some internal influence or internal assistance to the criminals out there in terms of the amount of vandalism that we have to deal with and the theft of cables that we basically are dealing with. You and I, Sally, as journalists, we really wouldn't know where cables and transformers basically are running through. The suspicion has always been that the people that are working on the network should really be the people that will basically know where the infrastructure is running and be able to target it during load shedding. Yes, we've never ruled out the involvement of our contractors and even the staff members. You'll remember even last month we arrested one of our staff members in the inner city who was basically helping the contractors to steal the whole transformer. And we really commend the work by our security forces and also coupled by the assistant from the SAPS and JMPD in this regard. I think we are starting to see most of these criminals basically being thrown behind bars, and we really are happy about that. Look, the relationship between the vandalism and theft and the termination of the contract is not really there. So we didn't terminate the contract, but the contract basically came to an end sadly. As you know, by their nature, contracts have a starting period and also the ending period. So in this instance, the contract basically ended almost 3 years ago, sadly. And because of the court order by some of those contractors, we couldn't deploy new contracts. So what we did was to request the courts to allow us to continue using these contractors whose term has expired until we are managing to basically get new contractors. So we were using them on a month-to-month basis, extensions that we had to ask the court for those. So those have come to an end at the end of May, and as such, we decided to basically start onboarding new contractors. As I'm talking to you now, we've got 8 of those already hitting the ground running, and they are part of the team that was basically responsible for reducing some of the backlogs that I mentioned earlier this past weekend. And we are going to onboard another 65 in a month or so that we can actually have a full complement of contractors. But sadly, our operations really are not dependent mostly on contractors. So we are comfortable with the internal resources that we have in terms of dealing with the low voltage outages that we are dealing with on the daily basis. And we have been empowering basically internal resources so that they can be able to be the ones that are doing the job, but use the contractors as the backup and also in terms of emergency. So I think the 65 that are coming through and the 8 that are already running now will be sufficient to pull us through this winter and also through the stages of load shedding as we move towards the end of the year.
Well, Isaac Mangena, all strength to you. 3,500 outage calls today, and that's a good day. It was 4,500 over the weekend, but progress being made with new contractors. Thanks very much. Spokesperson for City Power, Isaac Mangena.